All right, what's going on, Wolfpack? We're back with episode 27, and today's guest is Dr. Tanya Prewitt-White. So, she is a performance and executive coach who helps high achieving professionals and leaders move beyond exhaustion, overachievement, and autopilot to lives rooted in clarity, peace, and soulful success. With nearly 2 decades of experience in sport and performance psychology, in leadership development, Dr. Tanya brings a rare blend of scientific expertise, lived wisdom, and life experiences to every conversation. And her credentials, she has a Doctor of Philosophy in Sport and Performance Psychology, also a Master of Science in Sport and Performance Psychology, and she triple majored in psychology, exercise science, and physical education for her Bachelor of Arts. So honored to have her on the show today. Welcome, Tanya.
Thank you so much, Adrian. I'm so excited to be here.
All right. So I want to tell the listeners a little bit about our history to get started. I took Tanya's a couple of her classes back at the University of Illinois at Chicago between 2017 and 2019. And those two classes were individual and team sports psychology and health coaching and motivational interviewing courses. So I can say I absolutely love those. So you were one of the best professors I ever had. You were into it. It was a lot of fun. It was very interactive, especially the health coaching course.
Yeah.
So I particularly remember just the motivational interviewing side of things. So
Mhm.
asking open-ended questions, active listening, that sort of stuff, change talk.
I love it.
So
You
yeah, yeah.
remembered things all these years, a
Yeah, yeah.
decade later.
Yep, exactly, exactly.
So
So
good.
it stuck. Yeah, a lot of it stuck. So, and look at that, I'm using those skills right now. So it's been,
Love
so
it.
thank you for that. It was really
Yeah.
awesome. And I'm a little sad, to hear that you moved on from academia because you're such a good
Mm,
instructor. But
Thank you.
I'm really excited for what you got going on now, which you'll talk to listeners about here soon. So,
Yeah.
speaking of that, can you tell the listeners a little bit about what you're doing now and your career path to get you to this point?
Yeah. Well, let's go to the career path if I could start there.
Sure.
Um, I share with people a lot. I'm 5'3". I can't jump through the roof. And I was raised in a family that was just loved sports. And so it wasn't like what sports we were gonna play, if we were gonna play them. It's like how many can we fit in? And I fell in love with the game of basketball. So at 5'3", can't jump through the roof, not super, super fast, but quick. I early on had a mental game. And at 16, my mantra was, I'm a tiger till the end. And I think that any of my teammates from high school would say I would be that annoying, little quick
Yeah.
guard who was guarding someone full court. So I fell in love with sport. And I always wanted to have some kind of career in sport in some way. And when I learned sports psychology was an opportunity, I was like, I want to do that. And so I did, right? Long story short, I did. I absolutely loved it. I think that what I didn't have in terms of physical pedigree, I definitely had in mindset and heart. And that is a piece that I believe I was able to help a lot of people and athletes with. But for a lot of us, I think life shifts and changes. If you read my book, Peaceful Renegade, more might make sense. But I think one of the things in terms of sport psychology, this is honest to goodness truth. I started having the opportunities to work with CEOs and professionals who were navigating things like I'm having to let go, maybe 1,000 employees while also navigating parenthood and caring for a parent who has cancer. And when you attempt to do executive coaching work like that, sport, if you can, kick a soccer ball into a goal or you can swim faster, starts to feel and seem a little less important. And so slowly, I started realizing that the gifts that I had and skills I had attained in sports psychology, I wanted to use those in areas where I felt that they were more impactful, they mattered to communities, worlds, families. And not that sport didn't matter, but in some ways, I feel as though I had outgrown my
Mm,
work in sports, like as I had been trained to do it. And so
Okay.
that's what brought me to where I am now.
Gotcha. So where are you now? If someone hadn't read your book, what can you tell
Yeah.
them? What are you doing now?
Yeah, so now I'm helping high achieving humans create a life they love. I'm a recovering overachiever, perfectionist, all those things myself, and helping people realize that what gets us to the pinnacle or whatever our career or field might be isn't what also creates lasting joy a lot of times in it and sustaining it. And so I help professionals, CEOs, surgeons, sometimes just parents figure out what it is that they most want to do with their lives, what they love, and how they can have an impact in the world, make money,
Hmm.
and create a life that we have, like an energetic legacy, in addition to this legacy of money that a lot of people want to leave behind.
Hmm. Yeah, definitely. I love it. And I'm one of those people that you've helped so far. So, I
Mhm.
read the book and I do want to talk about a couple of the lessons I took from it. So, I'm a
Yeah.
little bit of a so for the listeners, we're going a little bit general here and then we'll switch a little bit more to sports specific soon. But these lessons are really, really important from the book. And one of those that I took recently kind of for myself, and I'm in a little bit of a career change myself. I'm finishing my PhD at the end of the year, but I did a lot of self reflection and I realized, coaching is where I really want to be right now, at least for the next decade or so, until my body doesn't allow me to do it so much anymore and be on my
Fair.
feet. So, yeah. Yeah, but it was really, really cool. It didn't take me long till I, from starting to read your book until I, did the first earmark. And so that first lesson was in chapter 1, page 31. And the passage is, I found that those who have the courage to pause and return to their comfort zone discover who they truly are and what they desire for their lives. So that one hit me pretty hard because this last year and a half or so, I've been working out on getting out of my comfort zone and challenging myself in every single way that I could, especially in my personal life too, but also my professional life, and just like, being a little bit more introspective about what I want, for my career and everything. And also the book, I don't know if you read it, it's called The Comfort Crisis by Michael Easter.
Ooh.
Um, yeah, yeah, so that
Write that
was,
down.
yeah, definitely write it down. Yeah. So that was another one that I read recently along with yours that is
Mhm.
all about getting outside of your comfort zone, right?
Mhm.
So, but then reading your book, that passage was like, okay, well, I also need to use my comfort zone to kind of figure out where, I'm going to fit best in my career and my life and everything. So, my question to you is, how, just from the general sense, it could be career, it could be sport, whatever, how can someone thrive in their comfort zone without becoming complacent
Ooh.
and continue to push their boundaries and continue growing, both as people and professionals? So that might be a little bit of a tough question, but I've always tried to find that kind of happy medium where that comfort zone is allowing me to, all right, like I know what I'm good at. I enjoy coaching people. I'm comfortable here, right? But I
Mhm.
also don't want to get complacent either and not continue to push myself and just stay where I'm at. So how does somebody kind of meet in the middle with that?
Yeah. I work with humans every day on this because let's be honest, Adrian, I want to back up and I remember
Hmm.
you were the most prepared, the most studious student. I think you're in the top 1%, right?
I
Okay.
appreciate that. Thank
So,
you.
I think one of the things as high achievers, so that's my market. It seems like that's going to be like your people too. And I think the thing that we learn is that we have to outwork, we have to out hustle, we have to grind, we have to like push for everything that we have. And what I find, I have clients who say, I love to suffer. I'm going to outwork you, all of these things. And like anything, our strength becomes our Achilles heel.
Mm, it can, yeah.
Yeah, it can. And
Hmm.
so, um, what the balance is, I often talk with clients about, yes, we want to push ourselves, but life is not like every day can't be a marathon.
Hmm.
Every day can't be a marathon. Every day we can't be going out and running 26.2 miles and then be here loving what we do, sustaining our profession, our relationships, right? Our own soul, our own health. We It's just not feasible, and more isn't better. And the same with growth. And so I think about nature. I think about this all the, and it's like periodization in your work, right?
Hmm.
And I have clients who like flat, like I don't rest. And it's like the earth rests, nature rests. Like we need winter for harvest. And so the same with our bodies, same with our souls, same with our minds. And I think that some of us have been socialized to think that rest is laziness,
Hmm.
stillness, peace is like, oh, I'm surrendering, I'm losing momentum, when actually we're gaining it by, maybe figuring out what it is that we want. Maybe physically resting our body is so good for repair so we can come back stronger. But for a lot of us, we haven't been socialized, coached, parented in a way that we have been feeling like we're deserving of a pause.
Mm. Yeah,
And
that's a
pauses are so
yeah.
important.
Yeah, yeah, that's a really good point. Especially in our society here in the United States, right? It's been like that for a long time. Just like you said, outwork, outdo every
Mhm.
single day. Rest is for the weak or whatever. And but if if you think about it, like finding that comfort zone and kind of staying there for a little bit, but not too long, allows you to get that recovery both mentally and physically, and then kind of catapult yourself to new push yourself past boundaries outside your comfort zone later. But if you're constantly going and burning the candle at both ends, then uh, burnout's a thing, right?
Yeah.
So.
And,
Mhm.
I think in our society and culture and social media, comfort zone gets a really bad rap. And
Mhm.
comfort zone is when our nervous system can actually just calm down, reset, regulate. It's really important to have moments where we're just, and comfort zone can be like, I'm just taking an exhale,
Mhm.
on my couch, in conversation with a friend, getting a
Mm.
coffee, right? Like it doesn't, comfort zone is like having this space. I have people who will say, actually just yesterday, I had a client say, oh, I used to think that me going and getting a coffee with a colleague was me not using my time productively.
Yeah. I,
And that's the culture, right?
mhm.
It's like, oh, how many great ideas or conversations happen over a coffee or a meal?
Mhm. Yeah, exactly. And I can understand like maybe somebody with social anxiety, that might be
Mhm.
stressful for them, that might actually be getting out of their comfort zone. But for a lot of people, it's not too. Like just getting
Yeah.
together with a good friend that they've known for a while and just getting together and talking and seeing how things have been and what's new and all that stuff. And that could be very, very relaxing, right, to the mind. And that's kind of like one of those next topics I want to get to is this sympathetic versus parasympathetic
Mhm.
nervous system balance, right? So
Yeah.
that's that next lesson I took from the book is chapter 10, a little bit towards the end there, and page 162. So this passage is the parasympathetic nervous system. This is the part of us that calms our heart rate, quiets the mind, allows us to rest and experience, even if only fleeting, a moment of joy.
Mhm.
And in today's modern world, we must choose. And the key word is choice. It's like joy very rarely just like pops up. We have to actively choose peace. We must practice calm, connection, joy, and creativity over and over again. It's almost like a skill these days because of, technological advancements, phones, news, everything, like news thrives on negativity and all that stuff. So, in my opinion, um,
Yeah.
so I kind of like to use kind of like a dog and a doorbell analogy. So, as far as like how hard it is for us humans to actually settle down and relax and activate that's a parasympathetic nervous system. So, if you're thinking about a dog just at home, lying down on the living room floor, just completely relaxing, all right?
Mhm.
Parasympathetic dominant, rest and digest. all of a sudden the doorbell rings and he goes ballistic. He goes to the door. Oh my God, who is it? Sympathetic nervous system is turned on like instantly, right?
Yep.
Um, and then, oh, a relative comes through the door and, he, sniffs a little bit. All right, cool, calms down. And all of a sudden, dog is right back on the floor, relaxed, parasympathetic nervous system active again.
Yeah.
Um, that's really hard for us to do as humans, isn't
Mhm.
it?
So hard. So
Hmm.
hard. I've started to believe that in our society, it takes more discipline to be still than to do all the other things.
Hmm.
And so when I started realizing, like probably like you, I work with a lot of disciplined human beings. And, the discipline is the morning routine, getting up and working out, making a good meal, getting to work, right? All these things. It's so much discipline. And the reframe is like, oh, it's also disciplined to find stillness, to activate your parasympathetic nervous system
Right.
as a need. And I think that switches things. Like, oh, it's also discipline. And I don't like people are like, oh, well, I don't meditate. And we can have differences of opinion, but I often say that going out for your workout isn't that is not that is not stillness. That is keeping running, and so our body and our mind have to be still. And so that could be, I mean, some people will say it's cooking, okay, right? But it's just a stillness is so much discipline for us to get clarity, um and also to train ourselves to almost compress time or slow time. People
Mm.
experience it different ways. And I think once people start engaging their parasympathetic nervous system more disciplined way or intentionally, they start realizing the benefits. But we don't, I don't know about you, but going through the school system or education, that is never, that is never enforced.
Uh-huh.
It's never taught. It's never seen as a benefit.
Hmm.
And even for athletes.
Yeah, that's what I want to get to here. So, um, for a very high achieving athlete, say collegiate Division 1 level or above or whatever,
Mhm.
collegiate level, they're very, very serious about their performance. You
Mhm.
said yourself they are, and I see it myself all the time, they are very, very disciplined when it comes to their
Mhm.
training regimen and how they practice
Mhm.
in general. Why I help me understand the psychology a little bit more behind why it is so easy for them, or it looks easy for them, to be so disciplined in their training regimen, how they practice. A lot of them are very superstitious. I work with a lot of
Mhm.
hockey players, and
Yeah.
those are some of the most superstitious athletes in the world. But why is it so easy for them to be disciplined when it comes to that? But so hard to be disciplined when it comes to settling down or
Mhm.
turning off or getting away from the phone or whatever it is that might be just triggering that mind towards a more sympathetic state versus
Mhm.
parasympathetic. What do you think is kind of the psychology behind why it might be more difficult for them?
I actually think, in terms of the psychology, I think it's a lot of socialization.
Yeah.
I mean, I even see it in youth sport culture, right? I have a 10 and
Mm-hmm.
7-year-old, and it's like, right, we got to practice, we got to go hard, right? More reps, more, more, more.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think it's so socialized
Mm-hmm.
to that you achieve by more reps, by more games, which that's a whole other podcast, right?
Yeah.
Um, and it's simply, I think so we start embodying and believing that. And then we have counter narratives. And I love the game of basketball. I mean, Phil Jackson, right, was known for taking his athletes, the LA Lakers in particular, right, and also with the Bulls, but like doing meditation with them, having them
Mm-hmm.
be quiet and still. And I guarantee, right, and in reading this book, like people are like, what is happening? But we have these narratives and examples of folks who are leaders in sport. We're like, oh, this is also valued, but I think it's going against the current.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing is we all love a dopamine hit, right?
Oh,
And
don't we? Yeah.
we all love a dopamine hit. And, I think that through meditation and stillness, we can also have these experiences, but we haven't been taught how. We haven't been taught that that's also a flow state. But when we go, I can remember, I used to do Orange Theory. And I
Hmm.
remember times I'm like, I'm on the biggest high. I feel like I just won the Olympics because I PR'd and I'm like 43 at the time or something. And my
Uh-huh.
husband would laugh hysterically. That's a dopamine hit. And so we also get addicted. Our achievement is addictive.
Hmm.
And so that means for athletes, CEOs, coaches, the wins, the losses, the great practices, those are we're searching for the next dopamine hit.
Hmm.
And when we get still, we're not always guaranteed a dopamine hit.
Hmm. Exactly. But a thought kind of comes to mind is, for strength coaches, if you're trying to get your athletes to be a little bit more still at times and recover appropriately, if you can kind of convince them or get them to buy in eventually that this relaxation response then allows them to get a bigger dopamine hit later on through
Yes.
better performance,
Yeah.
I feel like they would buy in a little bit more. But um, going back to this deep rooted socialization as kids, that
Mhm.
seems to be very, very important as far as their wiring later on as adults and how they think about rest and relaxation and recovery
Mhm.
during training and all that. So, and I've worked with kids from ages 8 years old all the way up to professional athletes. So I've worked with sport coaches as well. And what you said previously about just like the go, 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 more, 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 especially with travel hockey players and youth, they never stop. They never stop. So when they get to 16, 17, 18 plus and they're still competing like that, it's
Mhm.
incredibly difficult for them to settle down. So um, is there so let's kind of talk strategies a little bit. How can a strength coach working at a university with multiple teams, one team, whatever it might be, are there any strategies that strength coaches can start to use with their athletes um, if the athletes have this negative perception of meditation or just winding down and like can't recover, recoveries for the week, always got to go. What's something very simple that a strength
Mhm.
coach can start doing with their athletes?
Mm. I'm immediately. I mean, I've had athletes tell me like, "Hey, I don't do this," right? And so
Mm-hmm.
I think for strength and conditioning coaches, being open to the resistance. That's the easiest thing, right? We can't hit it like, "Oh yeah, no, let it," like give them all the facts. Facts don't change people. And so we can say, "Oh, that's really interesting. Tell me where you learned that." Tell me
Mm,
tell me how many times you've tried it. And
that's a
so
great question.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
how many times
Yeah,
have
yeah,
you
yeah.
tried it?
Mm-hmm.
And so I have one athlete on my client roster right now, right? Who is the epitome of hardworking, disciplined, all of that, and was like, yeah, no meditation. I don't do that woo-woo things. I don't do that. 3 months in, we are meditating. And I don't call it meditation.
Well, what do
I
you call it?
Yeah, I don't say, hey, we're gonna meditate. I think that's like, I mean, for anyone who's resistant to it, that's not gonna work.
Yeah, yeah, right,
Right?
exactly.
I say, hey, do you want to create a script? So I start off with this. Do you want to create a script of your very first performance ever? And they're like, and so then I explain, I'm like, our mind doesn't know the difference between what really happened and what it thought happened. That's truth, right? That's scientifically backed.
Mm-hmm.
And so, we want to relive those great experiences so that we can create them easier, so that when we go into a situation we've been there before, hey, do you want to create a 5-minute script? Every time they're like, yes. That's how we get them in the door. So, if you're a strength and conditioning coach and athletic trainer, all you have to do is literally like, hey, tell me about like your best performance ever.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you're, a soccer striker, like tell me about like the most amazing goal you ever scored. Who was there? What was happening? They've walked through it, right? You can take notes if you want. What I do is then I create a script from that.
Mm-hmm.
And then I record it. And before we start the actual script part, I say, okay, hey, let's close our eyes. We're going to imagine your best performance ever. Take a deep breath in through your nose, blow out through your mouth. Do box breathing with them.
Hmm.
Tell them, hey, all the things I want them to feel. You're calm, confident, and relaxed, right? And that, they're already, right? Their parasympathetic
Okay.
nervous system. Then I have them image their best performance ever. Then I end with, okay, you have everything you need. You're born to be a soccer player. You're confident, calm, and relaxed. Do your box breathing.
Hmm.
Then I end it. Then I send it to them. And 9 times out of 10, it might be some tweaks. They're like, I love that. Wow. They'll say, like, wow, I saw it, or they might say, hey, my dad was there and he was cheering. I heard him and I didn't think about that. Can you add it in? I mean, it's fascinating. That's how you get them in,
Hmm.
right? And
Yeah.
then from there, it's like, oh, let's do another one. And
Hmm.
then slowly, and then it just becomes normal. And then I'll say, hey, you know what we're doing? Right. We're doing guided imagery, we're doing meditation. And so that's, I think, with people who are resistant, like, I don't know how to be still. It's not like we automatically take them, okay, like, we're going to do 10 minutes of silence. And, like,
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Like without any context whatsoever, I feel like, yeah, that would be like, no, why am I doing that? Like, so, but
yeah.
yeah, I like that method though, because you are putting them in the context of something they already love and enjoy, and they've been successful at.
Yeah.
So they're visualizing that success, but all of a sudden, hey, you're layering some breath work on top
Mm-hmm.
of it, and you're controlling the breathing, and you're limiting how many breaths per minute and everything. All of a sudden, they're reducing their heart rate, and they are stimulating that parasympathetic nervous system. So
Yeah.
that's, hmm,
And then you can also have them, like, well, a lot of people have an Apple Watch where they can see their heart rate, right? And they
hmm,
can track it. And so then we're able to show, I mean, we can do things like able to show how their heart rate is shifting, right? And show them how this act, I mean, a lot of elite athletes love the data. We've been also socialized to love the data, right? And then they
yeah,
see that and they're like, oh, okay. And you might remember this from our sports psych classes. I've had so many athletes where they're like, "Oh, I just feel really tense," and they need to be loose. It's like, well, what are you listening to? And it's like, oh, you're listening. Like, this is what comes to my mind: Highway to Hell. Like, that's not what you
yeah,
want to be listening to because you need to be relaxed. And so, just showing them their heart rate changes from
hmm,
listening to certain music. It's like, I'm not saying you need to go be listening to classical music, but all of this is informing and impacting your performance. And so that's how
hmm,
we get buy-in.
yeah, yeah, definitely. That is a really really good thought to do. So that's a little bit more for individual athletes. I feel like it would, if you had a team of athletes, that would be tough, to get each one of them, to do that. But do you have any maybe strategies for a group of athletes, like that you have a whole soccer team,
Mm-hmm.
and you maybe want to get them to settle down a little bit?
Mm-hmm.
Is there something the coach can do at the end of a lift if they have 5 or 10 minutes, um, to kind of get them to buy in that way too? Or is it kind
Mm-hmm.
of like the same process with a group of athletes too? You just say, hey, we're going to visualize your own individual performance that you've done really well, and I'm going to walk you through it, with a
Mm-hmm.
script.
So here's the really interesting thing about we can say meditation and or imagery. What
Mhm.
works for one person isn't going to work for another. Some people, when they're imaging things, first person imagery, where it's basically they're seeing themselves versus third person. When they image something, it's like they're seeing it pass them by and they're in the stands at
Mhm.
an athletic event. So I believe it has to, a lot of times, to be most effective, it has to be individualized. However, in groups, and I've done this, so I know how
Yeah.
resistant certain folks can be. Is so first you have trust, right? Have you built the trust as in your example, a strength and conditioning coach? And I think if we normalize it, right, at the end of training or workouts, and we're like, look, we're gonna do box breathing, and when we walk through and set the environment. So here's the thing, is the music matters, the lighting might matter for some folks,
Hmm.
those kinds of things. We're like, we're gonna shift energy because all of life is a both and. It's we need to know when we need to be on and performing, and we need to teach ourselves when we can relax. Like that's what the greatest performers do. They have the
Mhm.
switch. And so we're going to be practicing this even as, when we're strength and conditioning. We're going to practice the same thing. So at the end, we are going to teach our bodies that it's okay to relax for a little while. And
Mhm.
I think education, getting buy-in, and saying, hey, like come to me. Maybe this isn't working for you, and I can individualize it for an athlete here or there. So going back to the soccer example, it can be the same thing. As a strength and conditioning coach, with some training and things, taking a class or two, you could do like, okay, we're gonna do the box breathing. Now we're gonna image ourselves, walking onto the field, maybe with our feet in the grass before we put our socks and our cleats on, right? And you're taking them through something, seeing the opponent, maybe it's the bus ride or the flight there, and having them, and we can make it more general. What are the emotions you want to be feeling? What are you saying to yourself? And we can give examples, and it can be trial and error too.
Mhm.
And as we normalize it, I don't remember if you were even a student at that time. I started doing meditation at the end of every class I taught in person when I
I
was
was there for a couple of those. Yeah.
yeah.
Mhm.
So I
Yeah, yeah.
started making
Mhm.
it because students were like, I need this. And there were student athletes in some of the class. They're like, I need this. Like I'm wanting more of this.
Mhm.
And so I started making it a practice. And then they'd be like, I want longer than 10 minutes. I'm like, well, I have to teach you something
Yeah.
today, you know?
Yeah, yeah.
Um, but it's so fascinating. I think we don't know that our mind, body, and soul, that we're actually craving this calm down, this slow down.
Mhm.
And so someone like you can be a person that honors it and creates that space.
Yeah, definitely. And for the listeners here, I want to talk about box breathing a little bit more. A lot of my master's work was in functional breathing methods, I guess
Mm.
would be the term. So basically, using breathwork breathing methods to um, manipulate how many breaths per minute you take so that you could get that heart rate response and that parasympathetic response. But box breathing is essentially where you have four components to your breath cycle. So one breath cycle is in and out, and box breathing, you do a standard length of time for each one of those components. So you breathe in for 4 seconds, you hold at the top of the inhale for 4 seconds, you breathe out for 4 seconds, and then you hold at the bottom of the exhale. So that's just for the listeners, so you know what box breathing is and how you can start doing it with your athletes, or if you're an athlete, do it for yourself. And a lot of athletes I've worked with too, they actually have a very difficult time. So 4 seconds, a hold at the top of the
Mhm.
inhale, and especially after an exhale, can be a long time, especially if you don't practice it a lot. So you could go down to 3 seconds or 2 seconds at first just to get used to that rhythm. But
Mhm.
another thing that kind of comes to mind, for coaches is if you have difficulty building buy-in with your athletes about doing the box breathing, you could just tell them, well, the Navy SEALs do it. So, yeah.
Yeah.
But a lot of my PhD research is in tactical human performance. So I see a lot of these studies and talk to other tactical professionals. And, if the cool Navy SEALs do it, oh, okay, we could do it too. But
Oh my goodness. Well, and I
yeah.
think too, remembering, especially as athletes, like we take over 20,000 breaths a day.
Mm.
And, if we think about like this can be reps too.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
This can be reps too. And just having like, are we conscious of the power of our breath? Are we conscious of it? And it helps with performance. So think of, not only physiologically, but psychologically. How many people, right? You think about a pitcher on the mound. What is the first thing that people tell a pitcher on the mound to do? Take a breath,
Mm-hmm.
right? You oftentimes see athletes in these pressure moments just taking the breath. It's grounding. It's so
Mm-hmm.
grounding.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah,
it's
the breath
accessible
is
to everyone if we're
exactly. It's
alive.
free. It's
Yeah,
free.
it's
Yeah,
free. Yeah,
you just
yeah,
got to know how to harness it. So, and it
yeah.
can be very frustrating at first. Like I was just working with an athlete, lacrosse player, and going into college, and just on belly breathing, like
Mm.
actually fully contracting the diaphragm. Because if you're not the listeners, if you're not aware of where the diaphragm sits, it kind of sits at the bottom of your rib cage, and when you breathe, your diaphragm contracts and moves down into the abdominal cavity. And what should happen is your abdomen expands out. You poke your belly out. But
Mhm.
everybody is so used to shallow chest breathing that they're using accessory breathing muscles to get that extra air in, but they're not fully contracting their diaphragm. And this is all through my experience, and there's also research on it too. So they're always tense up here. And that can also stimulate a sympathetic response too if you don't know how to actively contract the diaphragm. And it can be very difficult for somebody. And this athlete that I was working with, so I like to put a book or a 2.5 pound plate on the belly to offer some
Yeah.
resistance and have them breathe in deep and push out into that weight. And he just could not figure it out. Like at first, he's like, "What, is my belly going up?" And I was like, "No, not quite."
No.
But once we put that weight, we worked on it for like 5 minutes, and okay, the light bulb is finally starting to go off. So you have to be patient with this stuff. It can be
Yeah.
very frustrating, and you're like, an athlete might be like, "Oh, I thought this was supposed to calm me down." It's frustrating me a lot more, but
Yeah.
you have to give it a chance, right? You have to give it enough time. So,
Mm-hmm.
hmm so
Absolutely. A lot of times, things like this, we think about how many reps does it take to become elite in anything, right? 10,000,
hmm
10,000 deliberate hours of practice,
hmm
right? And so we expect sometimes that the mental side or the sports psych side should just click like that. And it's like we are actually retraining our minds and our bodies to do something different. So this is going to take
hmm
effort as well for a lot of us.
Yeah, yeah, and it comes back to discipline and the choice, like we talked about at the beginning of the episode. So,
Mm-hmm.
awesome. But I want to shift gears here a little bit because there is another topic that I'm extremely interested in.
Okay.
And a lot of this comes because of my own experience. I pay attention in the gym. I pay
Mm-hmm.
attention to how people speak to themselves or speak to other
Mm-hmm.
athletes. This seems to be very, very common, and athletes may not be as aware of it as maybe they should be. And same with coaches.
Mm-hmm.
So the question is, how much do body image issues like body dysmorphia get in the way of athletes achieving their true athletic performance? In your previous experience, what have you seen? Staying confidential, of course,
Mm-hmm.
just in your experience, do you feel like body image issues and early wiring in childhood, whether it's the sport or how the athlete was raised, do you feel like they kind of get in their own way at times of maybe not eating enough or being afraid to look a certain way rather than performing um, better, which is their primary job, their role on the team is to
Mm-hmm.
perform. Right. So
Mm-hmm.
how common is that, and what have you maybe seen in the past?
So this is interesting. One, let me name body image issues. While it would come up in sessions, it is also something, if it's clinical, something that I referred quite often. And I had this ebb and flow. I have to take us back. I had this ebb and flow in my career. There was a time when I only worked with male athletes, and then towards the end, I primarily worked with female athletes. And so I want to name, I don't know of many female athletes where body image isn't something that they're consciously aware of.
Hmm.
just just real. Because the woman's body is under surveillance, especially a woman's body in sport. You're too big, you're too small. It's all, you're too hippie, your breasts are too big, right? It's everywhere around, and it's coming from a lot of different angles. And so the same applies to male athletes as well. And so I know that athletes' bodies are in a lot of ways policed.
hmm
An athletic body looks like. And it could even be position wise, right? It also could be someone's height and
hmm
build. And so 100%, I believe that there are very few athletes that are not consciously evaluating or critiquing their body at many moments throughout their career. Does it have an impact? Absolutely. Because if I'm focused on my body, I'm not focused on the task at hand.
hmm
And it's unfortunate because we are raising generations of athletes who are more concerned or just as concerned with how they look versus the freedom. Like, how free could athletes play and perform if that was where their focus was, not on what their body looked at like at any given moment.
Mm-hmm.
And so 100%, um, myself included, and I go back to my, like, again, 5'3", like, what, you're not supposed to be even on a high school basketball team at your height. So when you start thinking about that, then maybe athletes go into overproving. And I happen to work with former athletes that end up becoming executives and professionals and that overperforming because something that was about probably their body to begin with has now
Mm-hmm.
transferred over. They believe they have to outperform, overachieve in every area of their life
Mm-hmm.
because
Yeah.
that's how they were successful in youth sport or in high school or collegiate sport. And so that's how they then also become successful in their life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah, a bunch of really good points there. And I want to talk about maybe like a specific hypothetical example of an athlete on any team sport. All right, let's say so one phenomenon that kind of comes to mind a little bit is relative energy deficiency syndrome, essentially where you have a chronic long-term reduction in amount of calories and the athlete is not getting enough calories to support performance and then their health starts to suffer a little bit.
Yeah.
So I know a lot of this falls on the dietitian as well, but um, to talk with the athlete through, but psychologically speaking, if an athlete isn't even aware that they might have long-term calorie deficiency, meaning they're not giving their bodies enough and they're not even aware of it. Is there any question that they can ask themselves to maybe bring it to conscious awareness a little bit more and then kind of like start to make some change from there? Are there any questions they can ask themselves or start to become more aware of things?
Yeah, I think one question that comes to my mind immediately is, where did I learn that calories were bad? Or where did I learn that I wasn't worthy of calories?
Mm,
Or where did I learn that um, I didn't want to be a certain size? Where did I learn this? I think, and this applies, we get this question applies to so many things. If we can get to the root of where we learned or heard or observed that this was the expectation,
mm-hmm,
then we can ask ourselves further question, is this still true?
mm,
And there's so many times, I'm working with people who will talk about, oh, and it'll be a side note, but I'm also doing marathons on the side and I'm realizing I need more calories and I'm struggling with calories. And I'm like, okay, well, that's not the work we're here to do. And I just asked a simple question, where did you learn this? And it might be something like, I've had people say, oh, I learned this from my high school coach who said that I needed to lose weight. And it's like, okay,
mm.
well, now we're a 40-year-old professional who's marathoning on the side,
Mm-hmm,
and your body needs energy. So what part of, like, that's not true. And it's also a lot of change, as we learned, and in motivational interview, a lot of change is like incremental. It's step by step. And so asking people, like, what is something you feel comfortable shifting? What's a change in your diet or your thoughts around food that you're open to changing? Now, without getting into a clinical role or a dietitian and things like that, but working hand in hand with someone could be helpful as well. So referring out is so incredibly important, especially the more elite the athlete, a lot of times I think, the more people they need within their team.
mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. And the team aspect was something I was interested in as well. So at a university or let's say a professional sports team, they have the high performance team. So you have, well, now it's becoming a lot more prominent, the sports scientist role. But you have your strength conditioning, you have your sports medicine, your athletic trainers, your dietitian, but you also have the sports psychologist
Mm-hmm.
in a lot of cases. But um, a lot of cases, I'm not sure, but I have to assume that there are some teams or organizations where a sports psychologist is not staffed.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So
Yeah.
what yeah. So what can from the strength conditioning perspective, the coach, what can a coach do in that um, situation where a sports psychologist consultant or a actual sports psychologist is not staffed without getting outside of their scope of practice, essentially, if they suspect that uh, an athlete is underperforming due to um, some deep-rooted psychological reasons.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. One of the things that I say, now this might not be popular, but
Mhm.
I have had a psychologist say this to me, a mentor sports psychologist say to me, okay, you don't have to be a psychologist to be a human. And that was such
Okay.
a gift because I think that even a strength and conditioning coach can ask the questions, right? You're not diagnosing, you're not providing like a behavioral change plan or anything like that.
Mhm.
But you can depending upon your relationship broach the conversation. And I think I know this. Athletes talk to the people they trust.
Mhm.
That's who they share with. And it's not always the coach. And I'm going to also say it's not always the sports psychology consultant or the sports psychologist. In my experience, I'm hoping it was me oftentimes, but these are the other people that they trust most. It's the
Mhm.
strength and conditioning coach and the athletic trainer. You heard it
Mhm.
from me. And so
Okay.
I I am the one who I am often saying like athletic trainers. I when I was at the University of Tennessee doing my PhD, I lived with an athletic trainer
Mhm.
who was a trainer for the Lady Vols. And I would say often like because an athletic trainer is seeing at
A
that
lot.
level is seeing the athletes, a lot of the athletes more than anybody
Mhm.
else.
Yeah.
They're traveling, they're staying overnight, the athletes are coming before and after practice, they're also at practice. And so I believe athletic trainers and strength and conditioning coach having a background in sports psych, you might make you might make the field of sports psych not as relevant. It will certainly be relevant, but it would be such a support to the athletes to have these skills. So I want to say, this is my plug. Even though I'm not even in the field, this is my plug. Like having some knowledge and comfortability of talking about the psychological aspects of performance is so important, and for anyone that's working with an athlete. But I think broaching the conversation of what you see, because I find that a lot of people, if we say, hey, like I noticed you're struggling, and I might have some ideas of what that might be, but what are you experiencing? And so giving the person, no one likes to be told. We all get defensive, like, oh, I know what's wrong with you. I'm going to tell you. But saying, hey, I'm just noticing, you're not yourself. Or I'm noticing you seem to be struggling a little bit more. Am I wrong? Or what's going on? That just being seen. We all have a need to be seen, right? And to be valued and heard. And if a strength and conditioning coach can just start off saying, hey, I see some things. I have some thoughts, but what do you feel like is going on? Letting the athlete say, oh, like, oh, I'm just tired. And you're like, oh, okay. And then just gently suggesting, this is what I say all the time, even with clients today. I say, I'm not all knowing because I'm not. I say, I have not all knowing, but what's coming up for me or something that's crossed my mind is maybe you're deficient of calories. And we say it really gently and like, hey, what do you think about that? Is that possible? And as you know, right, sometimes people have to like sit with it. Like, never thought about that.
Mhm.
No. Or they might get defensive, right? We're like, okay, yeah, well, it was just a thought. And so sometimes just saying it could be, and the athlete could be like, oh my gosh, now they see my eating disorder. I've had that happen with adult clients who I'm like, oh, they're just naming things and like then they
Mhm.
bring up something and I'm like, oh, I'm seeing that maybe an addiction to exercise is coming up, and I'm working with someone completely not around exercise or health or anything. And it's
Mhm.
just something I'm seeing, I'm noticing. And then they're like, oh, yeah, I had an eating disorder. I was a collegiate athlete. And then they start sharing. So just by gently noticing and naming what you notice in a way of care changes everything.
Mhm. Yeah, and the big thing that came to mind when you were saying that stuff was kind of an overarching theme is to try to make the approach as non-judgmental as possible, basically,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
You're not saying, I know what's going on with you. Why are you doing it?
Yeah.
Like that's just going to put them on the defensive, right? But you
Yeah.
are allowing them to open up to you a little bit more,
Yeah.
and you're willing to be that listener for them, if they
Yeah.
choose. And it might not be the right time on that particular day, and then
Yeah.
you take the next approach and you go on, the next day. So um,
Yeah, and many times this is an ongoing. We get it wrong when we think it's like we just approach it once, it's just one conversation. A lot of this is ongoing, right?
mhm,
We all have patterns, right? They just don't go away. And so it's an ongoing conversation. So where we get it wrong is we feel like we say something or address it once and then we let it be.
yeah, like, oh, I did my job, I brought it up, okay, it's out of my hands now. I call
Yeah.
myself doing that too, plenty of
Hmm.
times.
Hmm.
Like, okay, at least I said something. But you're when you're in it as a coach for a career and everything, like, you're working for, if you're at a university, you're working with these athletes, say if they're freshmen, 4 or 5 years, whatever it might be. Like,
Hmm.
you want to see their progress from year to year, and even beyond that. A lot of these athletes move on and they're not athletes anymore afterwards.
Yeah.
So you want to have them develop as humans too.
Hmm.
So I know it's difficult with performance always being at the forefront of the mind and everything, but yeah, taking the long term approach, it's difficult, but necessary. So for sure.
Yeah.
Hmm.
And I think as I was listening to you, UCLA women's basketball coach, Coach Corey, right? She did it beautifully. I mean, I think it gave another way of like, oh, everything doesn't have to be about performance. And I I know that's not popular, but truthfully, when we care for a human so deeply, we build their self-esteem, their self-confidence, as well as team camaraderie. I mean, humans are so powerful and their performance will only expand from there. And I think just the way that sport and life in the US has been going, we take that away. And I think the folks who start coming back to that are going to realize we've been missing out. We've been missing out on what's possible, that we can truly care for the whole athlete, the whole person, and perform well. We
Hmm.
can.
Hmm.
We can.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And it's only going to benefit them in the long run. So, but
Mhm.
it's just, it could be more difficult rather than the short term approach. But
Yeah.
that's where growth is stimulated. So, getting
Yeah.
outside the comfort zone a little bit. But
Ooh.
yeah.
And
Hmm.
like, let's be real. And if we think about the coaching world,
Hmm.
I'm not naive to think this is the reality. If I'm not performing, if, well, actually, if my team, if we think about college, if my 18 to 22-year-olds or 25 now with everything going on, um, if they're not performing, then I'm not going to have a job.
Hmm. Yeah. Could look at
And
it that way too. Hmm.
I
Yep.
think that's a lot of time the thought of,
Hmm.
oh, I need instantaneous performance. It's expected of me to come in and have results immediately. And I'm not disregarding that that's a lot of pressure. I am
Hmm.
not. I just don't believe that's the way to have sustainable growth and sustainable performance. Period.
Hmm. Hmm. Gotcha. Yeah, I think that's a good place to kind of transition out here a little bit. We're almost at an hour, so those were a bunch of super super good thoughts. So my last question before I kind of get to my closing questions is, so say going back to the sports psychologist or sports psychologist consultants in the university or with the team, say they are staffed. Um,
Hmm.
how could the strength coach start to interact with them better to get the most out of their athletes? Is there one thing that kind of comes to mind, or maybe one thing that they should, maybe not do? Maybe less is more, kind of
Hmm.
approach.
Yeah, from my experience working in university level athletics, it's very siloed, like many things. And so I think building the relationship, not that you're going to talk about specific athletes per se, but saying things are, hey, I'm noticing this. Hey, having the relationship where I could say, hey, like Adrian, um, I've been worried about this athlete, and keeping it general. Hey, do you see anything in strength and conditioning when you're, working with them? Do you see anything? What should I be aware of? Those conversations, as long, and we can tell the athlete, like, hey, are you open to me here? Not specifics, but are you open to me of like sharing with others how things are going and what we're working on and the progress we're seeing and that you might need more support. I think what ends up happening where we go wrong is we just reach out and start talking, and we don't welcome the athlete into.
Mm-hmm.
So, like let's say you're the strength and conditioning coach at a university and I'm the sports psych at a university. We could together, this is what I think is we could together at the beginning of seasons meet and like, hey, we're working as a team, and do a dual meeting with individual athletes just once and saying, hey, we're going to work together. What do you feel comfortable with us sharing with one another? What do you feel comfortable, what is your comfortable level of this? What do you want from this? What do you want from us? No one is ever really asking student athletes today, like, hey, what do you need from me? How do you want me to show up? How do you want us to work together so you can be your best? And
Mm-hmm.
athletes will tell us. And sometimes maybe a freshman will be like, I don't know. But we've already set the tone that, hey, we're working together for you, and we want the best for you. And I think these are a lot of things that from my history now, I have left. I haven't worked in university athletics since 2020, but that was never really always the norm. Sometimes it was with coaches, but it wasn't always with an entire staff.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And yeah, one of those important things too is to make sure that everyone's on the same page with expectations too. So
Yeah,
yeah, I feel like expectations from both sides, the athlete and the staff, are not communicated enough. So
absolutely.
um, yeah, awesome. Well, thank you so much for sharing all that stuff. So I have a
Yeah.
couple closing questions for you. Um, is there Are there any books you're currently reading or have read that stand out to you that you recommend to a strength conditioning coach or an athlete in terms of sports psychology, improving athletic performance through using the mind or breath work and that kind of stuff?
Okay, so I'm currently it's really a journal. It's Protect Your Confidence by Diana Katea. It's great. It's like a journal also. It's you work alongside week by week. It's been great having me think about confidence in a broader way. I've really enjoyed that. I think for anyone working with collegiate athletes, What Made Maddie Run is a great text, not because you're going to really thoroughly enjoy what you're reading, but it sets the tone for the pressures that collegiate athletes might be having. Now, I believe it was written, I read it in like 2016. However, so many light bulbs went off for me at the time. I was working with a lot of coaches, people who were generationally not attuned with what younger people were going through, meaning people who were raised with social media as the norm. And so um, the athlete Maddie ended up ultimately committing suicide, but it sets the tone for all of these reasons why. So I think it's incredibly important for adults who have influence over young people to read. Now, I haven't found a better one, but I'm sure there will be one that might
Mm-hmm.
help because, society is changing as well. I love The Power of Habit because I think a lot of great success and growth is also habit, by Charles Duhigg. That comes up for me.
Mm-hmm.
The Inner Game of Tennis, even if you're not a tennis player, has a lot of sports psych implications for
Mm-hmm.
folks too. Those are the ones that come to mind.
Yeah, yeah. And I used to play tennis in high school along with hockey, actually. That is such a mental sport. Oh my God, especially if you're playing singles by yourself.
Mm-hmm.
The self-limiting beliefs and everything that
Yeah.
comes up during a match, it's just crazy. But awesome. Well, thank you for those book recommendations.
Mm-hmm.
And let's kind of wrap up with if there is just one thing a listener, whether a coach or an athlete, can do starting today to shift their mentality in a way that will help them optimize their performance, what can they start doing? So, some very, very low risk, high reward habit or action or anything that they could just, kind of get the ball rolling, I guess.
Hmm. So this is not traditional, but this is what comes up for me. Is I would suggest once a week doing something that is out of the norm. This is actually bringing everything full circle.
There you go.
Once
Hmm.
a week. And what I'm meaning, and I think even in training, um or in our persistence and consistency, we continually do the same thing, but we don't like get ourselves where we're scared or where we have a lot of
Hmm.
fear. And so one of the things that I've been encouraging, now my clients are executive clients and things like that, is making that one call to someone who feels out of reach that you want to meet. You know, it could be um it could be forgiving a previous coach, but doing one thing per week that feels really uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm.
And it could be emotionally, psychologically, it could be for professionally. That feels incredibly uncomfortable because in doing that, just like the body, I think increasing our capacity in moments to do something that's like, whoa, and so for me, like you, I have a podcast. And so, I'm reaching out to someone who's like, whoa, they're like so influential. They're a brand name in society. I'm just going to reach out to them and I'm going to see what happens. And just to be able to expand my capacity and others' capacity. I've been telling a lot of people that too, because in our performance, we can get like, oh, I'm just going to stay consistent with what I always do and then not see these our ability to really grow quickly in a short amount of time.
Mm-hmm. Love it. Awesome. And yeah, one of those things I try to remind myself of is I saw it on Instagram. I don't know, somebody posted it, but it was really cool. It was so fear, the four
Mhm.
letters FEAR, they can either mean forget everything and run or
Yeah.
face everything and rise. There you go. Awesome. Okay. Well, thanks again, Dr. Tanya. I appreciate your time. And once again, for the listeners, this is Tanya's book, Peaceful Renegade. Check it out. So it's on Amazon. Is it at Barnes and Noble as well too,
It
or
is
just
not yet, but it will
not
be.
yet? It will
It's
be.
not yet.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Awesome. All right. Well, thank you very much for your time, and for the listeners, tune in for the next episode, and I'll have some more great guests on, and we will talk to you later. All right.
Thank
Thanks,
you so
Tanya.
much for having me. Yes, it was great.
All right. Bye.